Over the past decade, Airship Syndicate has solidified its reputation as a powerhouse in the indie gaming scene. With 3 critically acclaimed titles under their belt in just 5 years, Joe Madureira and his talented team seemed unstoppable. Building on the success of their hits like Battle Chasers, Nightwar and Darksiders Genesis, they set their sights on their most ambitious project yet. Wayfinder wasn't just another game for Airship Syndicate. It was the culmination of years of creative evolution. The studio aimed to create a sprawling MMO, filled with iconic characters, a massive lore-rich world, and an unmistakable visual style. Wayfinder's path to release began at a pretty unlikely event, Tennocon 2022. Just 8 months after Ruined King, a League of Legends story hit the market, Airship Syndicate had a pretty significant presence at the yearly Warframe celebration. Of course, Joe Madureira's design for an upcoming Warframe called Voruna was unveiled, but even bigger than that was the announcement that Digital Extremes, the developer of both Warframe and a pioneer in the free-to-play game space, had entered a partnership with Airship. Airship revealed the partnership in a quirky, high-energy video posted to their own YouTube channel. It featured a majority of the studio's major players, and although it only provided minimal details about the project, it did reveal quite a lot about the studio's thought process when it came to producing their best and biggest game ever. After getting their feet wet with Battle Chasers Nightwar and dabbling in co-op multiplayer gameplay with Darksiders Genesis, Airship felt that it was ready to take on something big, something they always wanted to do, but never thought they would be able to make, an MMO. However, they knew they needed some help. As a smaller studio with limited resources, they couldn't afford to bumble their way through development and make the same mistakes so many others had made. Apparently, the then untitled project was so large in scope that it could only be attempted with the help and know-how of a company like Digital Extremes. Their expertise in optimizing and perfecting a game like Warframe made them the obvious choice for Airship, and they filled their role dutifully for those first months of development. Airship Syndicate's new project was unveiled as Wayfinder at the Game Awards 2022, and a closed beta was announced for the week following the announcement, followed by an early access release in the spring of 2023. Everything was going smoothly for Airship, at least on the surface, but little did they know that it would almost fall apart less than a year later. After its announcement at the TGAs, Airship Syndicate held a number of closed betas to get players in so they could experience the game and provide feedback while they continued to work on it. For several betas spread out across several months, players were able to explore the world of Ebenor and fight the evil gloom corrupting it. The hype for the project was generally high prior to these betas, especially since Wayfinder contained some DNA of the beloved defunct MMO WildStar. Things were still being changed and tweaked by Airship, but the core of the game was in place. Despite labeling it as an MMO, it lacked some features that most associate with the genre, namely the fact that the game's servers were relatively small, which led to heavily instanced sessions. Loading into an area with 10 or so other live players is far from massive. This is a complaint that could also be leveled at Wayfinder's closest competitor, Warframe. But Wayfinder doesn't have the benefit of a sci-fi setting. With its colorful fantasy world and MMO label, it was always unfortunately going to be compared to the gold standard of MMO experiences, World of Warcraft, a bar that very few games meet. It was also yet another live service game in a sea of either dead or dying live service games. Some of the closed beta first impressions described being tired of the format in general, as it requires so much engagement and time investment in order to get the most out of it. However, the developers' dedication to free and fair monetization was definitely worth noting. While there were absolutely fans of Wayfinder throughout its early development, the general reception was, unfortunately, pretty lukewarm. Nevertheless, the 90-person team at Airship Syndicate continued to refine the Wayfinder's experience as the fall 2023 early access release quickly approached. Player feedback from the betas was crucial in these months, and Airship took all of it to heart, even the community's demand for a potentially game-breaking traversal option, which the team later fully implemented as a feature. There are always bound to be growing pains in any early access development, but when Wayfinder's initial launch was delayed one day before its originally scheduled date, it became clear just how rocky that start would be. Wayfinder's early access launch was slated for August 15th, 2023. On August 14th, it was delayed to the 17th, citing some final issues that needed to be ironed out. And then, August 17th arrived, and Wayfinder went live. It was a disaster. An extensive message from both Airship Syndicate and Digital Extremes apologized for critical infrastructure issues that led to lost time and a frustrated player base. It was a pretty serious blow to the game's reputation at a time when it really couldn't afford it. But the team pushed on. The server issues were fixed about a week later, successive updates continued to fix problems and improve the experience, and the first new Wayfinder, Grendel, arrived in September. Things were starting to look up for the players, but behind the scenes, all was not well. The tidal wave of video game industry layoffs was already well underway by this point, which meant the writing was on the wall for many development teams and their projects. On November 9th, 2023, just 3 months after Wayfinder entered early access, Wayfinder's doom arrived. In a bid to stay afloat, Digital Extremes downsized by laying off 30 employees, which just so happened to be the entirety of the external games division. However, unlike other layoff stories from this time, the split between Digital Extremes and Airship Syndicate was anything but harsh or cold. Airship retained the rights to the game, and Digital Extremes began the process of transferring full ownership to the developer immediately. This meant that Airship Syndicate would become the developer and publisher of Wayfinder, a first for the studio in its decade-long history. And that wasn't even the only major change happening at the studio. Over the following months, Airship Syndicate continued to push on through Wayfinder's development, releasing patches, adding new content, and making the game more worthwhile all the time. The December 2023 version 0.2 Eventide update alone added more than 2,000 bug fixes and adjustments. Then, in May 2024, Airship made a different kind of major announcement. The MMO-lite live service version of Wayfinder was dead. In order to keep moving forward with the project they so strongly believed in and continue catering to the growing community of Wayfinder fans, Airship made the decision to transform Wayfinder into a paid single-player game with optional 3-player co-op. No in-game monetization, and tons of gameplay changes to accommodate the drastic evolution. This new version of Wayfinder, the one that relaunched into early access on June 11, 2024, is known as Wayfinder Echoes. The decision to switch from a live service MMO to a single-player action RPG seems like a fantastic decision, but only time will tell if Airship's gambit will pay off. The story of Wayfinder and its evolution is a testament to Airship Syndicate's determination and creativity. If you enjoyed this video, we'd be so grateful if you could like, share, and subscribe. It's a small action that makes a big difference for us. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can also support us on Patreon. Each video we create is a passion project, and any bit of help is much appreciated. It really does help us keep the lights on. If there's a specific game you'd like to see us cover, you can contact me over on Fiverr. I'm always open to hearing your ideas and bringing those stories to life. Lastly, if you want to dive deeper into Airship Syndicate's incredible work, including games like Battle Chasers Nightwar and Darksiders Genesis, we've put together a full playlist covering the development of their titles.